There is a very specific type of chaos that only the internet can manufacture. A moment where completely isolated universes violently collide, forcing millions of people to debate a single string of text. In April 2026, the pristine, billion-dollar world of Formula One racing crashed head-on into the lawless, unfiltered wasteland of NFL Exile Twitter. And the collateral damage was the biggest reality star on the planet. Between racing royalty Lewis Hamilton and mogul Kim Kardashian. It was the kind of A-list pairing that breaks the internet organically, but Antonio Brown's commentary hijacked the narrative. With 10 words, he weaponized a woman's dating history and sparked a massive, uncontrollable firestorm regarding misogyny and slut-shaming in sports media. And this is why this specific tweet is so insanely crucial to study. It wasn't just an insult. It was a metaphor that reduced a billionaire businesswoman to a used vehicle. And the worst part? A massive chunk of the internet laughed. They agreed with him. While mainstream media was scrambling to write think pieces condemning the misogyny, toxic sports podcasts and meme pages were treating Antonio Brown like a modern-day philosopher. This is the story of the insult that divided the internet, and the desperate former star who used misogyny as his last lifeline to relevance. Just look at the contrast. You have Lewis Hamilton, a literal knight, arguably the classiest athlete alive, getting dragged into the mud by a guy who tweeted his way out of the NFL. But to understand why this specific insult was a nuclear bomb, you have to look at the exact machinery of the people involved. Before we dive into Act 1, I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone who has been watching. If you love deep dives into internet culture, PR breakdowns, and the dark side of sports media, do me a huge favor and hit that subscribe button. And leaving a like seriously helps push this video in the algorithm. Alright, let's get into the firestorm. To understand the sheer velocity of the backlash, you have to understand the targets. By 2026, Sir Lewis Hamilton wasn't just a driver. He was a global ambassador of culture, fashion, and human rights. His image was meticulously curated, entirely bulletproof, and steeped in British prestige. Honestly, Lewis Hamilton operates on a completely different frequency than almost any other athlete. The guy hangs out with Anna Wintour, he champions diversity, and he avoids tabloid drama like it's a plague. When rumors started leaking that he and Kim Kardashian were quietly spending time together, it made sense in a weird, ultra-elite billionaire kind of way. Kim was heavily leaning into her high-fashion, legal scholar, post-Kanye era. They were two untouchable titans at the top of their respective food chains. Enter Antonio Brown, a former generational talent whose descent from gridiron greatness to full-time internet provocateur is one of the most studied downfalls in modern sports history. AB had learned a dark, undeniable truth about the modern algorithm. Outrage is a far more reliable currency than talent. It's crazy because AB used to be known solely for his footwork and his hands. But by 2026, his only playbook was digital terrorism. He wasn't playing football anymore. He was playing the attention economy. And the fastest way to hack the attention economy? Target the biggest names possible with the most disrespectful angles imaginable. He knew Lewis would never respond. He knew Kim's PR team would tell her to ignore him. He wasn't looking for a fight. He was looking for an audience. From the outside, the Kim and Lewis pairing was a PR masterclass. Elegant, private, and highly lucrative for both of their personal brands. But for the internet's darkest corners, it was an opportunity to pull the elites back down to the dirt. Bro, the internet hates when Kim Kardashian wins. No matter how many billion-dollar companies she builds, no matter how many people she helps get out of prison, a massive demographic of men will never forgive her for her past. And AB, he knew exactly which button to press to wake that demographic up. When Antonio Brown pressed send on the phrase _0_, he didn't just insult Kim Kardashian, He synthesized decades of deeply ingrained patriarchal sports culture into a single, viral punchline. This part is what actually makes my blood boil. Let's break down the sheer, unadulterated disrespect of this metaphor. Mileage. He is literally equating a human woman, a mother of 4, a billionaire, to a used automobile. The joke implies that because she has a public dating history, her value has depreciated. It's the oldest, most tired locker room trash talk in the book, repackaged for the Twitter algorithm. And he used Lewis Hamilton's profession, driving, to make the pun land. It was venomous, and it was engineered to go viral. The immediate reaction was a terrifying reflection of sports media's underbelly. Within hours, the tweet had tens of millions of impressions. For every voice calling out the blatant misogyny, there were 5 voices celebrating the cruelty. The phrase mileage became an instant dog whistle. It wasn't just about Kim Kardashian anymore. It became a proxy war about modern dating, female autonomy, and the double standards applied to high-profile women. Like, imagine the sheer hypocrisy here. We praise male athletes for being, quote, 3. Think about Leonardo DiCaprio or Derek Jeter. They are legends for dating dozens of supermodels. But a high-profile woman dates a few high-profile men after a divorce, and suddenly she's a used car with too much mileage? LMAO. It is so painfully backwards. But on sports Twitter, the internet algorithms rewarded his behavior with millions of engagements. But the culture at large was about to push back. The internet might love a toxic joke, but mainstream media in 2026 doesn't play that game anymore. The think pieces were being typed up before the tweet even cooled down. The firestorm was officially lit. You can spark a fire for clout, but you can't control what it burns down. The fallout didn't stay on Twitter. It bled into mainstream sports media, creating an immediate crisis for networks that had spent the last decade trying to sanitize their coverage and champion female empowerment. Seriously, watch the ESPN clip FL wide receiver slut-shaming a reality star. The networks were paralyzed. If they ignore it, they get accused of covering for toxic athlete behavior. If they cover it, they amplify Antonio Brown's abuse. It was a no-win scenario. The pushback was swift, and it was furious. Female journalists and cultural critics seized the moment to highlight how the __6___ comment wasn't an anomaly. It was a feature of how women adjacent to sports are systematically devalued. The discourse quickly separated into 2 irreconcilable camps. One side viewed the tweet as a textbook example of patriarchal violence and digital harassment. The other side, largely hiding behind anonymous avatars and podcast microphones, viewed it as a masterclass in internet trolling, arguing that public figures like Kim Kardashian are fair game. It's literally insane how fast the lines were drawn. You had women on TikTok making incredible, highly researched video essays breaking down the history of female commodification in sports. And stitched to those videos were dudes in Oakley sunglasses recording from their truck saying, "It's just a joke, stop being sensitive." It completely fractured the timeline. And the craziest part? Abi was just sitting back, watching the world tear itself apart over a sentence that probably took him 4 seconds to type on the toilet. But as the outrage peaked, a deeper analysis began to emerge. The conversation shifted from Kim Kardashian's dating life to Antonio Brown's psychological state. The insult, critics noted, was less about Kim and entirely about the devastating insecurity of a man who no longer had a stadium cheering for him. And here is where the narrative flips. People started realizing that this wasn't power. This was profound weakness. A bee attacking Kim wasn't an alpha move. It was the desperate thrashing of a guy who knew that the only way he could get his name next to Lewis Hamilton's in a headline was to drag them both into the gutter. He couldn't compete with Lewis on the track, in the bank, or in society. So he threw mud. In the face of unprecedented disrespect, the public waited for a response, a lawsuit, a clapback. a statement from Lewis Hamilton's team. But what they got was the most devastating weapon in modern public relations: absolute, deafening silence. People were begging for Kim to destroy him. They wanted her to post his bank account balance or bring up his legal fees. They wanted Lewis Hamilton to challenge him to a fight. But remember who we are dealing with here. Kim Kardashian has survived literal international scandals. Lewis Hamilton races machines at 200 miles per hour while dodging billion-dollar corporate espionage. You think either of them is going to validate Antonio Brown with a response? Never. For Lewis Hamilton, addressing the insult would mean dragging the prestige of Formula One into the mud. For Kim Kardashian, acknowledging the troll would only provide him with the oxygen he so desperately craved. The Kardashian PR machine of 2011 might have given an exclusive tearful interview. But the Kardashian machine of 2026 understood the modern internet perfectly. Starve the troll, and the troll suffocates. It's a PR masterclass, guys. By ignoring him, they completely stripped AB of his power. He threw a grenade, and it detonated in an empty room. When they didn't respond, AB actually started to look pathetic. He started tweeting more, trying to bait them again, doubling down on the jokes. But without a reaction, he just looked like a crazy guy yelling at a billboard. Within a week, the internet's notoriously short attention span kicked in. Without a reciprocal strike to sustain the feud, the algorithm moved on to the next crisis. But the silence from Kim and Lewis wasn't a surrender. It was an execution by irrelevance. You literally couldn't script a more humiliating defeat for AB. He risked whatever tiny shred of mainstream goodwill he had left, fully expecting a war. Instead, Kim just launched a new Skims campaign, and Lewis won another podium. They literally, I don't know, heard him on a global scale. If the mileage tweet was a flashpoint of internet toxicity, it also served as a cultural litmus test. It forced the sports world to look in the mirror and reckon with the casual misogyny it still harbors in its comment sections and locker rooms. As for Antonio Brown, he remained trapped in the digital purgatory of his own making, forever chasing the high of that one viral moment, screaming into a void that increasingly refused to answer back. It really is wild, and honestly, pretty sad. The guy was arguably a top 3 receiver of his generation. Now, he's just a professional hater trying to monetize misogyny because he ran out of talent to sell. He tried to reduce Kim Kardashian to her mileage, completely blind to the fact that his own engine had blown out years ago. In the end, the quote, zero insult wasn't really about cars or driving or even Kim Kardashian. It was a dying star's desperate attempt to steal the gravity of 2 massive suns. And in the brutal arena of modern media, the worst thing you can be isn't hated, it's ignored. Honestly, I still think about the sheer audacity of this moment. A guy with no team, no league, and no filter, trying to tear down a literal knight and a billionaire mogul with a used car salesman joke. It's a tragic comedy of the internet age, but hey, that's what happens when the timeline rewards the loudest voice in the room, even when that voice has absolutely nothing of value to say. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the intersection of sports media, PR, and internet culture, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel. It definitely helps us out to keep pushing out more content like this.